Hi, Jonathan Adams. Welcome to Flower Power by World Bakers, our new podcast. You are the R&D Director for UK at Baker&Baker, one of the largest producers of baked goods in Europe. And we really wanted to have you on the podcast to share with us the lessons learned in your career as a Director of Research and Development and New Product Development, because I think a lot of people who try to make it in the industry would like to know how to do this better.
Hi, yeah. Thanks for having me on. I've been with Baker&Baker for 10 years now, so the R&D Director for the last 5 years. Great to be on the podcast and happy to share any thoughts and knowledge that I might have that people are interested in. So, yeah.
I just learned that Baker&Baker relaunched its premium collection of baked goods called the Black Label range, which has over 40 different types of products which are sold in 15 European markets or countries, however we want to call them. And I was curious, how many new products do you supervise and do you put out every year?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So generally across the whole portfolio, all 12 sites, we'll launch around 350 new products. So it's quite a lot of products. In the UK, where I look after the main NPD team there, there's 35 people who work across NPD, packaging, project management, regulatory innovation. So there's lots of people required to get products from concept through to launch. So in the UK last year we launched 200 products, and I'd say around 5-10% of them are really true innovation. The rest is lots of seasonal existing product development where you're maybe trying to reduce sugar, trying to reduce cost, trying to hit a particular brief from a customer. So it's very varied. And yeah, going back to your original question, so the 40 that we've launched with Black Label, they're existing products, but we've re-looked at the recipes, we've improved the products, and we've done a bit of a relaunch there for our own company portfolio. So we're really excited to see how they land in the market, and they're proactive for us. So we come up with those. They're our recipes, and we then go out to the business and try and sell those out to the marketplace. Um, Whereas I'd say 70% of our business is receiving a brief from a customer and then responding to that brief. So there's quite a split between, our own products that we develop and sell to the market and products that we make for customers, specifically to their brief as well. It's quite an interesting dynamic.
How do you foster a workplace or a working process where people are encouraged to believe in their creativity, look for new ideas? What kind of, rules or leadership do you enforce with your team to make sure that they get a chance to be as creative in terms of new products as you would want them to be?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, it's tricky because you have your day job as well, which, part of an NPD role is not just being creative and innovative every single day. You also have to run trials. You've got lots of, background work you need to do on different systems, costings, recipe setup. You've got to do lab testing. So there's a whole 160 other different items we have to do after you've done the creative bit. So to try and find the time to really just think about creative products is really difficult. So we do try to harness that. So we will have innovation sessions within the team. We'll also try and get out to stores, get out to independent bakeries. We do food safaris, try and do things with customers as well, where we go out and we see what's in the marketplace, what's happening. We encourage everyone to be on social media. Long gone are the days when I first started in NPD where you'd look at what Jamie Oliver's new book had in it or what was coming on the latest TV show each week. It's now TikTok and Instagram and what's trending. I think we can see with the takeoff of Dubai chocolate at the beginning of last year, how quickly things can come into fashion now, whereas previously it could take months, months or years for something to grow. Now something could be trending within hours, and how quickly can we get onto that trend before it moves on somewhere else? So there's definitely a lot more challenges with creativity and innovation, a lot more excitement as well. But it's making sure that we're on top of it all the time, whilst also doing the day job. So it is it's really difficult to manage the two things. But trying to create that time for the team to just take a step out of the day to day and focus on pure innovation. That's the only way you can do it. Really, is to break that time up and give them that space, which we try and do. I was also thinking about the question as well. It's not just innovations in what's happening outside, it's also creativity within the business. So we've done quite a bit of work over the last 18 months on how do we utilize existing equipment and do something different with it. So can we take that muffin line and put a different dough down there rather than a muffin batter? Can we take a depositing machine and deposit something else? So it's also trying to be creative with what you've already got in the business as well. So there's a whole area of creativity, from the raw materials and the ingredients to the machinery in the factory, and all around that. So it's trying to keep people thinking outside of the day to day. That's probably the main one.
It's very interesting. I thought I would have imagined it was just a matter of getting inspired by what happens in the market or the trends on social media. It never crossed my mind that you're actually also looking at what you already have available as technology or recipes, and see if you can twist those into something else. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of these hybrids sort of are born from, is people playing. So, giving people the space to say, okay, Friday afternoon, let's block out 4 hours. What happens if we put, a muffin batter in this product, or what happens if we put cookie dough on top of a brownie, and then suddenly a brookie's born. So these things come out of people experimenting and going back to why we were all in this industry before, is to make baked goods that we all think are fantastic and new and exciting. So sometimes you have to just give people a space to remember to do that. Otherwise, we can just get into the daily churn, and so it's key that you create that environment.
Because creativity is a muscle and should be trained all the time, or at least people should feel the freedom to exercise it in your team. I,
Definitely, yeah.
I was thinking, there are trends, as you said. The Dubai chocolate thing is huge now. It's been huge for about a year and a half. And there are also these trends in Romania. For example, I can see that a lot of bakeries, artisanal or not, they look at the Scandinavian cuisine or Scandinavian bakery, and now there's semla. You can buy semlot here. You can buy the cardamom
Yeah.
buns, the Swedish style. So there are always these fashions, these fads that people are interested in. But you come from Britain, which is, a place with a great tradition. You have the Cornish pastries. You have all these beautiful heritage recipes. Do you think? And I know you make products for a large part of Europe and for many markets. But do you keep in mind is that maybe it's, do you want to see your own heritage represented in the products that you put out, or at least a percent of it to be based on, British bakeries?
Yeah, I think there's room for both. So I I'm a chef background, so I have a lot of passion for British food, but I do love fusion as well. So bringing parts of different areas into traditional. And the 20 years I've been in development, the sort of retro, home baked, that kind of nostalgia piece has always been a trend. So it's not something that goes; it comes around in cycles. And we're seeing things like school cake is a big thing in the UK at the moment, where it really is a vanilla sponge with white icing and sprinkles on top, like we used to have at school 20 years ago, or that my mum used to make for me. So these things do come back round, and you can kind of get inspiration back from that, or bring back purely nostalgic things that people go, oh, I remember that from when I was a kid. So yeah, 100%. I love looking at products like this, and flavor trends where you can maybe take a flavor trend like sticky toffee pudding is a big trend in the UK, but can you put it into a muffin or into something else that people recognize the flavor trend but put it into a different concept? So, or yeah, it's a good point. We always like to look at these things. Or do you tie it into a new ingredient that's coming? So pistachio is big in the UK at the moment. Is a growing trend as well, and that green color into products. How do we put it into a traditional cookie so that people understand the product but want to try a slightly different ingredient or a twist on something that's fairly standard? So yeah, there's lots of ways you can go with it, really. But I think you're right. The nostalgia piece is always a trend ticking around in the background. So embracing our cultural products or things that we remember from the past and bringing them to life with the modern twist is always a safe area of innovation and creativity, definitely.
Once an idea comes to you, comes up from all these things you do, the food safaris or the just looking at things from outside the box. Once an idea comes into the process, when do you know it's a valid idea? When when do you know this is worth, developing and then presenting to the rest of your team? Because then you'll have to turn it into actual products.
Yeah. Um, I'll tell you, there is a lot of failure, and I don't mean failure as in products. There's a lot of testing, a lot of trying. We may look at something. So if we said we're going to look at Christmas 2027, because we're already kind of done Christmas 2026 crazily, we're already that far ahead. Um, you might come up with 15, 20 ideas as a team, and only one or two of those may make it through. You may come up with 30, and only one or two may make it through. So I think as a group, if you make something and it really is good and everyone tastes it and we all get quite excited about it, then it's a lot easier to sell it into a customer when you know it's good. A couple of examples last year, we one of our sites made a Dubai brownie, and we had samples sent up for a meeting I was having at a head office. And the second I took it out of the packaging, everybody was like, "Oh wow, that looks amazing!" And then when they ate it, like, "Oh, this is great!" And within 8 weeks, we had it into a customer, and we had it on shelf 2 weeks later. So, there's things where you make something you really feel like we've hit something good here. We've got another product which is a Victoria sponge muffin in our Wirral site, and this was made maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And the first time it was developed in the test bakery, we tried it. I was like, that just tastes like a Victoria sponge. Incredible. We need to show this to everybody. And I think there's certain things where you make it or somebody makes the product and everybody gets excited about it. And that's really nice to see. And then everybody wants to sell it. So they want to go out and they want to show it to the customers because they know that they're going to get excited about it as well. So, yeah, you do get these every so often. I would say, these perfect products that come along. But there's a lot of products that we make as well where you go, yeah, I'm not too sure that works.
But does it happen that you like it and then no one else does?
Yeah, there's definitely. I've got a very sweet tooth, so sometimes I'll try something and I'll be like, "Wow, yeah, this is amazing. Give me more, give me more." And then you put it in front of a customer, and they're just, "This is way too sweet," or "This is, yeah, I'm not too sure about putting that spice into chocolate." And sometimes you can also be a little bit ahead of the curve. So products that we maybe developed 5, 10 years ago, were maybe a bit too soon, or maybe they're just a bit too quick for the market to catch up with. And they go in, they launch, you're really excited about it, and then 12 weeks later they're delisted because they haven't sold. And you're thinking, well, why? That was such a good product. And then 5 years later, the trend will start to grow, and you'll think, well, should we try it again? So it can be really demoralizing when you're thinking something's great and it doesn't actually take off. You know, other times when you launch a product that you really believe in, and maybe it doesn't get into as many stores, or it doesn't get the push that it needs, or it launches with 10 other products that are also good, and it just kind of disappears into the background. So it is tricky because if you're launching 200 products, you want them all to work, but yeah, it's a difficult market to try and get something away, especially if you believe in it as well. Yeah.
And also, I mean, the thing you eat is one thing, but there is you also take them to packaging, to marketing. So there are many other steps that define how or support how successful a product will be. I know you work with all these teams in order to make the
Yeah,
final product.
yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of challenges in there as well. So you could develop a product that was fantastic to eat, but it's going to cost you £7 or €10 to sell it because you've got 50% chocolate and you've got all butter. And so sometimes you start with a product up here where you're thinking this is incredible, and then you have to be realistic and say, well, yeah, but people need to afford to buy it, and we need to have a market for it. So you do have to sometimes then bring a product back down into a more consumer-led product, which can be difficult to do when you're passionate about your product as well. So we spend a lot of time making sure that the product is right for the market, hits the right price point, is in the right pack format to show the product off. So we like a lot of clear, a lot of the acetates we use in the UK are fully transparent, and they're 88% recyclability, and they're cheap to hold the product in as well, but very visual. So you want to show your product off. We've had other products which we've launched in the past that go into a box. You can't see the product, nobody really knows what it is, and you can kill a product that way. Or the price point's too high, nobody buys it because they don't want to spend the money to try it. So it's a real balancing act to make sure you get the product right, the packaging right, the price point right, and everything, and it's in the right position on shelf. So yeah, it's there's lots of work that goes into it, just not just the product development part. Yeah, that was a good question.
You were mentioning that a lot of your work is in reformulation because everyone wants
Yeah,
now less sugar or maybe eggless or less egg if not eggless, and
yeah,
a lot of these things are determined by the market and the supply chain. And I mean, we all know chocolate. I mean, cocoa is incredibly expensive now compared to a few years ago. Vanilla the same. How do you mitigate these things? Do you work with ingredients producers who can help you with? I know, for example, people who, because vanilla became extremely expensive, they work with vanillin. But
yeah,
also vanillin had a problem with the supply chain, and
yeah.
they were working with one of the big ingredient producers to create botanical vanilla, which was a sort of essences that imitate vanilla and are stable during baking, because this is another
Mm.
issue with very delicate ingredients. They don't always come out at the other end the way you expect them to. Do you are you also involved in this part of the process about what kind of ingredients to bring in so you have predictability in the production process?
Yeah, 100%. It's probably one of our biggest, I'd say biggest frustrations. It's one of those unpredictable things. You really can't think year on year what's going to happen, because if there is a tropical storm somewhere and suddenly half of you know half of a plantation's wiped out, and yeah, if something happens, you know, the war in Ukraine is a prime example where suddenly we couldn't get lecithin. which is crazy. You don't even think about the fact that 70% of lecithin is coming out of Ukraine. So then you're thinking, well, how do I get an alternative to this? Can we use soy versions? Can we use alternative versions? And then it really is a timing thing where you have to try and find these things quickly. Then you have to test it in the factory. You have to then change specs. You have to get suppliers approved. So it's a really difficult thing to manage and predict. Well, you can't predict it. The chocolate pricing we couldn't really predict. And then you start looking at alternatives to chocolate. We worked with a company called Chaviva who are roasting hazelnuts and creating a chocolate-like flavor within a product. And we've launched a few products into Europe with that, and that's worked really well. And then we looked at how we could reduce the cost of the chocolate by maybe taking some of the cocoa butters out, and it's still calling it chocolate, but you can then add some cheaper fats into that product. Do you use compounds? So there are always, this is again, it's a creativity thing. It's, you sit down, you're thinking, what are the solutions available to us? What can we do? And then you try and narrow it down to the best possible solutions. But yeah, it is literally a minefield. Every year we're almost waiting. What's going to be the thing this year? Touch wood. So far this year we're okay. But like you said, last year was chocolate. The year before was lecithin. Year before that was vanilla. So there will be something. Egg. There'll be another flu outbreak, and I'm sure we'll have prices of eggs going through the roof. And like I said, we look at alternative to that all the time. So yeah, constantly looking, constantly thinking, how do we mitigate risk? It's probably the main thing there. Yeah.
I'm glad you explained this because I I want it to be clear for people that this is not just some very privileged bakers in a very well adjusted lab who can do whatever they want and put it out on the market. This is also a labor of making it affordable, making it predictable, so that the customer
Yeah.
can find the same product over and over again when they come back to the store.
Yeah, of course, and it really is that as well. It's making sure it doesn't impact the product in any way. It's got to give you a match. The price has got to be the same. It really can't affect anything. So it's really, really tricky to try and mimic exactly the same thing when you have lost an ingredient that you were using for years. So no, it's yeah. I always it's when I see emails come through saying, we have a problem with this, it's kind of exciting, but also very worrying because you think, now we've got to go and try and solve the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. Um, what's the favorite thing you ever did that exceeded your expectations? That it was a labor of love to produce. That the holy grail of your experience as a R&D director.
Wow, that's a really good one. I think last year we were, I can be open, we were approached by Subway um, to launch a foot-long cookie, and yeah, so in the UK, we launched it was a foot-long cookie, big sharing cookie that was going to be massive. Timelines were crazy tight, 12 weeks. You need to get it through the factory, trialed, all the labs done, tested, and then into store ready to go. So the challenge was put to the team, and got a lady called Lucy and Lauren that work on our Daventry site. And they worked with the site on how they could produce this product. We'd never made anything like this before. How could we make cookie into a long, thin tray so that it rose to the right height, it fit the packaging? Where did we get the packaging from? So Stephanie, my packaging manager, was scouring the globe trying to find the right packaging that would reheat well and hold the product. That grease wouldn't pass through. There was just endless thought. So we started off with how can we make it? What are some of the challenges we might face? How do we basically get this done in 12 weeks? We had project managers on there. looking at every single detail. When do we need to do this, this, and this by to make sure we hit the deadline date? What can we take out of the critical path to make sure that we can hit all these dates? And so I think not just because of the product in the end, we've got to a product that the Subway loved and the customer loved, but we got it all done in such a short space of time, and we hit every single milestone on the way. I think for me that's really pleasing because it was everybody coming together, and the factory at the end of it got a product out that they were really proud of. The team got a product that they were proud of. Everybody had an input, and the end consumer, we got great feedback on social media, and the whole thing was a success. So for me, that was great because it was start to finish. Everything, there was a lot of stress, but everything worked. Everything got made in time, and yeah, we all stood there in a Subway eating a cookie, going, "Yeah, we were already thinking about this 12 weeks ago, and now it's live." So that's probably the biggest one in the last kind of couple of years. Um, in my lifetime, I've launched thousands of products, so it'd be really difficult to pinpoint one. But yeah, no, I think that's in recent times that's been the one that's been challenging, but yeah, fun to find a solution for. Yeah.
It sounds like a really fun project, and I've never heard of a foot-long cookie, so now I'm interested.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, they sold really well. It was a kind of like a 6 month deal with Subway. So it was on their menu as an add-on. But no, it was a fun project, that's for sure.
well, on this high note, I want to thank you for sharing all this amazing experience with us. Hopefully, our watchers will learn about, that it's not easy to make the products that they find on the shelves, and the people who want to follow in your steps have inspiration to do it the way you do. Thank you so much, John. It's been a pleasure having you on Flower Power.
Oh, thank you very much, Joe. Speak to you soon. Take care.
Bye.